welcome to our first City Council meeting of 2022. We're happy to have you all join us, and for those joining us virtually, we're happy to have you as well. We are trying to socially distance a bit here, and so the format's a little different. We do need to bring Dr. Harshberger to the meeting. Dr. Harshberger, could you state the reason that you're not able to join us this evening?
Yes, I had a COVID test this afternoon, and I tested positive for COVID. So I wanted to make sure I was feeling a lot better actually today, but I thought, well, I'd better have a test, and then it tested positive. So they said that I was probably not allergic, or what, allergic? At this point, but we're not taking any chances. So I'll stay home for a few days.
Thank you for being cautious. We have a motion to allow Dr. Harshberger to participate remotely. We have a motion, we have a second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And I will ask, first of all, thank everybody for wearing their masks. Please keep your mask on, be as socially distant as possible during the meeting. If you are a speaker and come up to the podium, you may take your mask off for that. For the rest of the meeting, please keep that on. At this point in time, we will go on and formally call our meeting to order, and we'll ask that Gary Harris, our commander of the VFW, lead us in the pledge.
All right, present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. And if you will please join us at this time in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you all very much. At this time, we will open the floor for citizen comments. If you have anything that you would like to share regarding the agenda or any other public matter, if you would like to come down to the podium, be sure to state your name, speak into the microphone so that we can hear you and that those that are watching online can hear you as well. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, and we will begin this portion of the meeting now. Seeing no one taking advantage of the citizen comment portion of the meeting, we will close the citizen comment portion of the meeting. And council members, you all have minutes from November 8th, November 15th, November 29th, and December 14th. I will explain a little bit about each of these meetings. We had a regular meeting on November the 8th. That meeting, at that time, we did begin to discuss replacing the departed council member Onassis Barres. We scheduled additional meetings. There is one that's not reflected here that we will have the minutes for at our next meeting. But most of these are fairly simple. The reason we had so many meetings and so many closed sessions was to go through the process to determine a new council member, to have folks who were interested have a discussion with council, and to make a final decision. And then on November 29th, we made the motion to bring Dr. Harshberger back on. We had a regular meeting on December 14th. So hopefully that explains why we have so many minutes that we're taking a look at this evening. And as such, council members, we can consider all these together unless there are changes. Do we want to consider all 4 of these minutes together as submitted? Do we have a motion? So we have a motion. Is there a second? A motion and a second on the minutes from November 8th, November 15th, November 29th, and December 14th. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay.
Yes. One thing, there needs to be a correction. I wasn't at the November 8th meeting. I was listed there.
We'll fix that typo, Dr. Harshberger. Thank you. So since Dr. Harshberger brought that up, let's go through that process again just to make sure we're okay. Do we have a motion to accept as amended? We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay. So approved as amended. At this time, we have a very special presentation, but before we get into that, I have a bit of a story to tell, and it comes from this press release that we had to talk about, so I will take my mask off for just a moment. 3 Radford City police officers were recognized with a life-saving award by the Virginia Police Chiefs Association. The award for life-saving recognizes an officer's actions that put the officer in harm's way in the attempt to save the life of another individual. This year's honorees risked their own lives in an effort to save others from burning buildings and vehicles, drownings, stabbings, shootings, attempted suicides, and other dangerous situations. The 2021 recipients from the Radford City Police Department are Officer Clayton R. Benson and Sergeant Travis P. Coffey for their work on August 2nd, 2020, when citizens reported to the Radford Communications Center that there was an individual tubing in the New River and he appeared to be in some distress. Officers Benson and Coffey were first on the scene and observed the distressed citizen in the water, coordinated the arrival of Radford Fire and EMS personnel. They immediately shed their police gear, waded into the water, swam out to the citizen, where they were able to calm the panicked tuber and lead him to the riverbank where care was transferred to EMS personnel. The citizen stated he had been overcome by abdominal cramps, fallen off his inner tube, and panicked because he was not able to swim, had ingested some water. Thankfully, the citizen was not injured because he was able to return home. It was the direct, swift, and decisive actions of Officers Benson and Coffey that rescued the citizen. After the incident, even the citizen remarked he was not sure he would have lived without their immediate involvement. The Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police are proud to honor Radford Officer Clayton R. Benson and Sergeant Travis P. Coffey with the 2021 Award for Life Saving. And I think they deserve a round of applause. We're going to bring them up front here in just a minute. But that's not all. We have one additional award, and we do have 2 individuals who are going to come forward to present these. The 2020 recipient from the Radford Police Department is Sergeant Emily Height. On February 25th, 2020, a call came in about a tree accident. Off-duty Sergeant Emily Height was a block away and heard yells for help from a male subject. Without hesitation, Sergeant Height located the male subject and found that a large tree trunk had fallen on him. While fire and EMS arrived on the scene, Sergeant Height placed herself underneath the male subject to stabilize him while plans were implemented on how to remove this large tree trunk. During the time that Sergeant Height was stabilizing and supporting the man, she was reassuring him that everything would be okay. The victim suffered multiple serious injuries, but he is hopeful about recovering from his wounds. The Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police is proud to honor Radford Sergeant Emily Height with the 2020 Award for Life Saving. Emily? And I'm going to ask that Chief Dodson come forward. We also have a very special guest, Chief Hartman from Buena Vista, who is the Vice President of the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police.
So, Mayor, just again, I'd like to reiterate, thank you and Council for highlighting the great work of these officers tonight. I'd like to thank Chief Hartman and the VACP for being here tonight and honoring them as well. But, I just want to say that these officers, put their own lives at risk to help another, to help someone and to save their lives. And that is just truly remarkable. So just so proud of what they have done, and we're able to save a person in the process. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief Hartman, I know, has brought the awards from the VACP, and we'll just have Sergeant Coffey and Officer Benson step up to get their awards first.
Yes, gentlemen, if you want to come up front, you can stand right next to the podium there. Come on down.
Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Good job.
Sergeant Height.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you all very much. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the citizens of the city of Radford and all of those of us in Southwest Virginia. We know that every day when you put on the uniform, when you step out to do your jobs, that you put your life at risk in some way, shape, or form. And that these are two particular situations for the three of you where we can recognize where your immediate action made a difference in the lives of others. And we just say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, friends, we're not through with COVID yet. The city of Radford has been experiencing a surge along with the Commonwealth of Virginia and the country as a whole in cases of COVID-19 and hospitalizations. And we thought it would be prudent to ask Ashley Briggs from the Regional Commission Business Continuity Team. She works with the Health District here in the New River Valley. And Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of an update of where we are, and we may have some questions for you as a council, how we move forward from here.
Absolutely. So, all right. So, thank you for the introduction, Mayor. I'll give a little bit of an update on variants, viruses, vaccines, kind of where we are, what's going on. I think there's a lot of information that's kind of been pushed all over the place, so I'll give a really brief update on that. Then an update on COVID-19 in Radford. The last time I updated you guys was in August of 2021. And then an update on how our team, the business continuity team, can help Radford and Radford businesses. So this is a lot of words, but I wanted to have it all spelled out so people could look at it later. But basically, the biggest thing is that viruses evolve, just like everything else in the world. Over time, they're going to change. Their goal, even though they're not living, is to survive. And when we throw vaccines in the mix and people who have natural immunity, they need to change or they're going to become extinct or eradicated. So some of the ways that they change are through changes that cause them to be more transmissible or spread easier to other people. Changes in disease severity. So normally a virus starts out making people really sick, but that doesn't help because then you lose people to severe illness. They don't want to go out and socialize with other people, or they die and then they can't infect other people. So it becomes less severe in the symptoms. Sometimes presentation of symptoms changes. We've seen that with Omicron, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the effectiveness of vaccines and prevention techniques, treatment, and the tests themselves sometimes have to change as the virus changes. So how's Omicron done this? Well, I think we've all seen COVID is a ball and it has spikes on it. The more mutations there are, the faster it's going to spread because the vaccine was made against a snapshot in time of what the virus looked like. So if the red spike turns purple like you see here, now it is slightly different. The vaccine may not recognize it like it did with the original one. And then presentation and severity. Omicron has a change in its actual mRNA, or what tells the virus what it's doing, how it is infecting people, and when it replicates. And part of that genetic code that's changed actually looks really similar to another coronavirus that we know called the common cold. So you may have had people having a little bit of different symptoms, which we're seeing with Omicron. And then that transmissibility, when the spike changed, it didn't only change shape, it actually became a better key, if you will. So instead of it being a flimsy key, that kind of fits in the lock, and if you wiggle it good enough, it'll open a door like Alpha was, this is a perfect matched key. So it gets into your cells really quickly. So I talked about the symptoms. What are the symptoms? Well, we're only really seeing fever now in people who are unvaccinated. People who are vaccinated aren't experiencing fever with Omicron. We're still seeing fatigue. We're still seeing some coughing, some shortness of breath, still seeing that loss of taste and smell. Congestion, it may not be allergies. A lot of people think that they have winter allergies when they've never had it before, and that nasal, pressure and runny nose may actually be COVID. In children, we're seeing a lot of nausea and vomiting and diarrhea, especially in really little kids. But the big take home here is that symptoms are much milder if you're vaccinated. People who are vaccinated are not going to the hospital, and deaths from Omicron are down significantly. People who are in the hospital right now in our area, we're still seeing a lot of Delta, and Delta obviously infection presents, and it takes a few weeks before symptoms get bad enough that you're going to end up in the hospital. So we're still seeing a lag in those cases, and we hope our hospitals get a little bit of pressure taken off soon. So back to the numbers. So this is the graph I showed you in August, and I made a little arrow kind of where the peak started, so you can follow it along with the next slide, which is where we are now. So if that was a little wave we were worried about in September, we're getting pretty high going into the new year. It's going to keep going up for a while, but there's some good news. So this is what the whole, New River Valley looks like. And yes, they're also going up. We're all going up. But why don't you take you to South Africa, where Omicron started approximately in the October timeframe. And their peak, they reached in about 45 days. So looking at that again from South Africa, they had their alpha and beta and their delta wave just like we did. Delta is important because it did help provide some natural immunity to a few folks. That total wave, though, that they're looking at for this new Omicron strain is about 3 months. So if we extrapolate that out for ourselves here in Radford, we're looking at being out of the woods with Omicron hopefully by the beginning of February. I know that may seem a long ways off, but if you think about how long the Delta wave kind of lasted, it was a little bit longer than that. So maybe by the Super Bowl, things will start to feel a little bit like they did this summer. I also wanted to take us back in time so that we can think a little bit. People getting nervous. When is this going to be over? Everyone's sick of COVID. The last pandemic, which was the Spanish flu, you can see in the bottom graph here, and it had 3 waves in the United States for the most part, a few little blips in some communities, but overall in the United States, there were 3 waves. We are entering our 4th wave, hopefully our last. Influenza and just a handful of coronaviruses that cause common cold-like symptoms like COVID-19 all end up becoming endemic at some point. You either vaccinate yourself to endemic or it becomes endemic merely by there's no one left to infect in the end. So I think this, fingers crossed, should be our last wave. Now, just because something's endemic doesn't mean it's never coming back. We get vaccinated for the flu every year to keep the flu at bay. So hopefully we don't have a flu pandemic. We will probably be in the same boat with COVID going forward. So like I said, annual vaccines and acquired immunity allow society to function with some seasonal deaths and illness, but just like we do with the annual flu. Vaccines aren't going anywhere. COVID's not going anywhere. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, it really is the time so that we can start to get things more back to normal. And then I wanted to take you to where we were at from a vaccination standpoint. So last time I met with you guys in August, Radford City was at 40.1% vaccinated. I will say since then, we have had a number of clinics at local businesses in Radford, and we are now at 45.7% vaccinated, which I think is remarkable where we're at. We've also done a ton of booster shots. So, last point before questions, how can we help you? The business continuity team is here to be of aid. I don't want to see businesses closed due to employees waiting on testing. I don't want to see businesses closed because everyone in there has COVID. So if you have a question or a concern, call, email me. If you need help writing a plan to kind of keep disease at bay in your business, we can work on that with you. It's free of charge. If you need to have an information session with your employees about COVID, about vaccines, about public health in general, happy to do it. If you need an on-site vaccine clinic for your employees, I can schedule that. If you need help in your daycare, childcare facilities, we're working with the public schools in Radford. We offer fit testing if you have a need to get your employees to wear N95 masks. We can help with contact tracing. We're really a one-stop shop because our goal is to keep industry running. Which, this is my pitch. We're making businesses resilient beyond COVID. So if you have any other questions besides COVID, you can also call us. And with that, I'll take any questions. And that's my contact information. That is my work cell phone and my email.
Ashley, thank you so much. I would like to share this, at least this portion of the information. Your whole presentation is very valuable for people to see. A couple quick questions. Is it too late for someone to get vaccinated or begin the vaccine process to help deal with the wave of COVID we're in now?
It's not going to be too late. And here's why. We have a flu season every year. We will have a COVID something every year. Will it be in the same time frame as flu? I don't know. But it's not going away. So you're either going to potentially get COVID every year, every couple of years, or you're going to get vaccinated. That's where we're at. And so it's a personal choice at this point on how comfortable people feel with those risks. But the vaccine's not going away. I'm sure by fall of next year, there will be a booster that is a combination flu COVID shot.
And you had mentioned that some of the hospitalizations we're seeing are still Delta cases. From what I understand, while most of these cases may be considered Omicron, and I don't know that we can know that specifically right now, Delta is still out there, correct? There's other variants of COVID that are still around. So while Omicron may not be as life-threatening to the unvaccinated, there are still serious variants of COVID that could be, correct?
Absolutely. I would say that right now, Fralin is telling us about 50% locally of the tests that they're running are still Delta. So Omicron is here, but Delta is also still here. So, I mean, if you're unvaccinated, you think, oh, Omicron's going to be a little bit of a cold. Well, you don't know if you've got Omicron or Delta or the Alpha variant or some other variant that we don't even know about yet.
And that brings me to my next point, and then I'm sorry, I'll quit talking and open up the floor for other questions. What recommendations do we have, considering that we're really at a height in terms of number of cases over the last 24 months? What would be best practices for individuals, for organizations, for activities at this time over the next, say, 4 to 5 weeks?
I would say that the first and foremost is if you are feeling sick, to stay home and get tested. If you are exposed, to follow that CDC guidance, which is to wear a mask for at least 5 days and get tested, and then wear a mask for 5 more days. Masking is not 100% effective, but it does reduce the potential for you to spread it to somebody, especially with something as transmissible as Omicron. Wearing it at the grocery store could be really helpful to not spread it to those people working in the grocery store, even if it's a quick transaction for a few minutes as you're checking out. Really on the business end, it's making sure people are, sanitizing and explaining to employees their sick policies and encouraging vaccination. The higher we get in our vaccination percentages, the less chance that Omicron or other variants have of infecting our community, because there isn't anybody with a high enough viral load to infect others.
And large gatherings. During the beginning stages of the pandemic, we did what we could to minimize large gatherings. What's the recommendation regarding that?
So large gatherings that are not socially distanced and out at this point. So reducing those large gatherings, at least for the next few weeks, could be really helpful to helping reduce the spread.
Okay. What other questions do we have? Naomi, do you have anything?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I was curious if there are estimates beyond of the prevalence in the community beyond what we know from DH testing, because there are people who are taking rapid tests that are not tracked and not reported.
I can't quite hear you.
I'm sorry, I realize that I'm not wearing my microphone. Do you know the prevalence, are there estimates of the prevalence of COVID in the community beyond what is showing up in the DDH testing? Because there are people who are taking rapid tests.
Yeah, so there are a lot of rapid tests that are being taken. As I'm sure we all know, the shelves are pretty bare at our local pharmacies. So there can be other variants out there. I will say that Fralin does a good job of keeping a pretty good sum on what is in our community. They may not have the correct totals, but from a percentage wise, I think it's pretty accurate.
And so if I am somebody who's decided that I should probably be taking a rapid test and I have trouble getting it, what are your recommendations? Any tips on where to look or how to get one?
Yeah, so rapid tests are really great if you have symptoms. If you have been exposed, they're not super helpful. And if you've had symptoms for the last, I'd say, especially with Omicron, last 2 days, it may be negative. Just because it's looking for antigens and your body may be fighting the virus enough at that point that you're not producing enough for it to show up. The best suggestion I have is to call the health department, or if you're an employer and you need an employee to return to work quickly, give me a call and we can get you set up with a PCR test. Fralin's turnaround time at the health department is still 24-ish hours, maybe a little bit longer, but it's not 2 and 3 days. So PCR tests are still really valuable. I know everyone wants those results in 15 minutes, but unfortunately, until the federal government releases more of those tests, we just don't have them.
Thank you very much.
Jesse, what questions do you have?
Yes, so I think that there has been a lot of confusion with the changes that we're seeing. So what we're saying right now is 5 days isolate and 5 days with a mask. Is that after you get a positive test?
So it's very specific guidance. It's 5 days if you do not have symptoms. So say on day 1 you have symptoms, but on day 2 and 3 you feel better. By day 5 you can't even tell you had it anymore. Then that guidance applies to you, and you would on day 6 be able to wear a mask. You know, you can't eat out with people, go to restaurants. You can just strictly wear a mask when you're around others from 6 to 10 days. If you have any symptoms still lingering, you should not follow that guidance. You should continue to isolate at home until you feel better, and not just a little better, like well.
Yes.
I have is, so if what you're seeing with the 2 variants, if a person, let's say, we don't know, let's say I had Delta, are we seeing any natural barriers then with Omicron since I've had the Delta? Or if I have Omicron, that maybe it makes my potential to get Delta a little bit lower?
I will say, whether you've been boosted or recently had COVID, you have higher levels of natural antibodies in your system. So there is less of a chance that you'll get infected with another variant, but it's also not 100%. Basically, Omicron is able to bind, like I said, more tightly and more quickly. So even if your immune system is ramping up a response, it's detected a threat. Omicron is so fast that your body doesn't have a time to mount that normal, it has 2 days to kind of fight something before you start to feel sick. So we've seen people get Delta and then turn around a few weeks later and get Omicron, unfortunately, but their cases are extremely mild or they're completely asymptomatic. But I will say it's very, very, very rare, and it only really is in those extreme immunocompromised. If you get COVID, you're not going to probably get COVID for another at least 90 days.
What do you have? Dr. H., we're going to come to you in just a minute.
No questions, but thank you for appearing for us, Ashley, and for this presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Harshberger, what do you have?
I have some skin in the game, as you probably know. I'm out here with COVID, but I was tested today. I had an earlier test. It was negative, but then I was tested today. I'm really at the moment, as you can probably tell, asymptomatic. And I was told I probably needed to sort of isolate myself for a day or 2 more, but it seems like I've had the symptoms for quite a while. And so they feel like I'm probably within a couple of days, I'm not going to be spreading it. So That's where I am now. But I'm feeling very well right now, and I'm just frustrated I can't be there in person. But thank you. Your presentation was very enlightening and well put together, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure we all do.
Thank you.
I want to ask one other thing, because I think what we're finding in the community is that for instance, we've had COVID in my household. My doctor did the antibiotics, did prednisone, I had several vitamins, and then my husband's doctor said, just write it out, treat the symptoms. I called the health department myself because I was very confused. I was still testing positive, but I'm more than 2 weeks out now. So I did call the health department, and I told them I'm still congested, I still have a cough. And so I think this becomes the problem, because I was told something a little different than what you're saying. So what I was told is, even though this is what you call chronic COVID, that I may have symptoms for months because it does damage to your lungs, et cetera, and that after 10 days, what I am shedding is no longer contagious. After 5 days, it's very rare. But, I mean, you're saying if you have any symptoms, well, I may, according to the call I made at the health department, have symptoms because it's chronic now, and it may be quite some time. So I guess as a community member, I know I called the health department, and I'm hearing something a little bit different than what you're telling me from the health department. So
I think the health department and I are saying the same thing, because if after 10 days you still have symptoms, you're no longer infectious, right? We know that from the science at this point. The CDC is erring on the margin that most people who don't have any symptoms don't have a viral load high enough to infect others. And so that's why they're saying if you're asymptomatic, if you have 0 symptoms by day 5, or say day 6 or 7, whenever you stop being symptomatic, then you can get out of quarantine, or isolation, I should say. But you should not, it kind of backs up to that 10 day. You can get out before 10 days if you're asymptomatic. If you are symptomatic, you should wait that full 10 days. It's not saying after 10 days, if you still have symptoms, continue to isolate, unless you have a fever, of course, because that indicates that you still have active infection. But the 5 days was really a olive branch, with the CDC recognizing the science that people are less likely to be infectious if they are completely asymptomatic or symptoms have completely resolved, to help our workforce stay in place, since we were seeing entire industries start to collapse from this Omicron wave. And if you have symptoms still, you really shouldn't push it, because you could be infectious. So you should wait the full 10 days, or if it ends up being 6 or 7 or 8 days for you, or 9 days. But if it goes past the 10, you're most likely no longer infectious. You're definitely going to have a lingering cough if you develop those kind of respiratory symptoms.
I'm on day 15.
Yeah.
Still not fantastic, but I just wanted to make sure, again, because I know people in the community are, I think that what you've heard alluded to is we're worried that the tests may not be reported out. In my household, we have 5 people. We only sent 1 person to get the official test because he had to go all the way to Woodville. So we sent him, and he was there almost half a day. We all tested positive, and then he got a positive result, so it kind of confirmed what we're saying. But you figure there's only 20% in my household alone that you're aware of. So is there any reporting that we should be doing? Should we, if you're doing a home test and you get a positive result, should we be telling someone and making a phone call to report that out?
Yes, so it's in the fine print, I think, in the boxes actually, but because COVID is a reportable infectious disease, if you take a home test and you become positive, you need to either do one of 2 things. Call your primary care physician and tell them about your diagnosis, and if you need treatment, seek treatment with them. Or you can call the health department and report your result directly. We know that's not happening necessarily, but it would be a nice thing for people to do, because it is required by law, and it helps us get more accurate numbers for reporting purposes. But even before the home tests were available, there are a lot of people that were sick and just decided not to get tested. So the margin of people becoming ill and it's not reported, I don't think has changed drastically.
Thank you for clarifying.
So it's broken up a little bit on our end. Thank you. Do you prefer people email you or call you? What's the best way to reach you?
Whichever is easiest for them. I know that sometimes things are, on fire and they need a response faster than email. So if it's something that you need to call me about or text me about, I'm more than happy. You may not get a response immediately, but I'm pretty responsive to both email and phone. And if it's an emergency and you don't feel comfortable with email, I'm more than happy to take a phone call.
Thank you so very much for your time and for all the work you're doing. For those joining us here and virtually, businesses in Radford, I highly encourage you to take advantage of Ashley's experience and the things that she shared. Certainly there's some things tonight that you might be able to take information from, but if you are concerned about COVID in the workplace, if you're concerned with some of your employees, especially if you employ some students, they're returning to Radford in the next week. We're going to be going through this peak for several more weeks, and that could cause some businesses to have very few people available to help them get through this process. And as such, please reach out to Ashley. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, particularly in this case. And if there are things we can do to help mitigate it, it might be able to keep some folks in business and keep doors open and keep people healthy. So thank you so much, Ashley. Anything else?
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Have a good night. And we will post some of that information on the city's page. We'll have some information out there. It hasn't changed. We put that out there before, but we really, really strongly encourage people to take advantage of that. In my hurry to get to Ashley, I did skip over our proclamation. I don't know if Terry is here with us this evening, but Forrest, why don't you go on and read the proclamation for Terry anyway after all the good work.
Thank you, Mayor. City of Radford Proclamation. Whereas on June 30th, 2021, Terry Daniels Smuz retired as New River Community Action CEO after over 32 years of service. And whereas in the 1990s, under the leadership of Terry Smuz, New River Community Action worked with local daycare centers to provide free child care, implemented the CHIP program in the New River Valley, started the Homeless Intervention Program, and opened the Floyd Family Resource Center. And whereas in the 2000s, under the leadership of Terry Smuz, New River Community Action started the following programs in the New River Valley: the VA CARES program, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, the To Our House Thermal Shelter, and partnered with Total Action for Progress to provide the Swift Start program and expanded Head Start. And whereas under the leadership of Terry Smuz, New River Community Action is one of 6 Virginia Community Action agencies participating in Virginia 2-Generation Whole Family Pilot Project that seeks to use comprehensive case management and coordinated, focused agency service delivery to address the needs of the entire family rather than the individual members of the family. And whereas Terry Smuz was a recipient of the Ann Kagi CSBG Award, presented by the National Association for State Community Service Programs Board, to recognize her outstanding and significant contributions to the Community Services Block Grant Program, dedication and commitment to the constituencies served and leadership and advocacy for the network. Terry Smuz was also the co-recipient of the 2021 Mark Grigsby Selfless Leadership Award presented by the Virginia Community Action Partnership. And whereas, under the leadership of Terry Smuz, working in partnership with the NRCA Board of Directors, and supported by the hard work of volunteers and staff members and partner organizations, New River Community Action has succeeded in its mission to provide a hand up, not a handout, and help diverse communities in the counties of Floyd, Giles, Montgomery, and Pulaski, and the city of Radford identify and alleviate the causes of poverty. And whereas the Virginia House of Delegates and Senate have passed mirroring proclamations commending Terry Daniels Smuz on her decades of dedicated service on the occasion of her well-deserved retirement, now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Radford City Council joins with the General Assembly and the other governing bodies in the New River Community Action Territory in commending Terry Daniels Smuz for her outstanding leadership of the NRCA and her selfless commitment and dedicated service to improving the lives of people in our communities for over 30 years. Mr. Mayors, I move that we adopt this proclamation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Well, and thank you so much for sharing that for us. And to Terry, thank you so much for all the years of service. So many families, so many citizens have benefited from your efforts. We will move on to old business, and I do have a mea culpa. I have not had the opportunity to speak with the potential commissioner for the Peppers Ferry Regional Water Department. Has anyone else spoken with anybody that wants to make a nomination tonight? I will try to have that taken care of by our January 24th meeting, and I apologize I was not able to get that completed, if that is okay with council. So now it's story time. We have a 2-year situation that we've been working with for Ordinance 1762. Scott Hill requested the vacation of an unopened portion of 6th Street, which is adjacent to property he owns between 604 and 504 Robertson Street. We had a public hearing in February of 2020. A recommendation of a board of viewers, we decided to vote to vacate the right-of-way on February 22nd, 2021. So this took quite a bit of time. There was a good bit of evaluation by members of the board of viewers who were citizens from the community. Council members went out to review the property as well. However, following that, Ridpath Properties has provided an objection to the vacation. This is still in the court system, and we have not gotten this concluded at this point in time. As such, we need to look to amend Ordinance 1762 to provide some additional time. So council members, you all have Ordinance 1762. The major change I'm just going to read out. Within 12 months of the adoption of this ordinance, the applicants shall record this ordinance together with the deed of vacation in the Radford City Circuit Court Clerk's office, provided, however, that in the event of an appeal of the vacation or alteration of the property, this requirement shall be stayed during the pendency of the appeal, and the time period within which the applicants are required to record this ordinance together with the deed of vacation shall be extended for a period of 60 days following notice by the city to the applicants that the appeal has been finalized. So that's the major change to the ordinance. That is, in fairness, to go through this appeals process, have a determination as to where things are. Once we get the answer, if the vacation still stands, then they have 60 days following that. Council members, are there any questions regarding this change? Do we have a motion to adopt the amended ordinance 1762?
So moved.
Mayor,
Dr. Harshberger, do you have a question?
no, I think it's only fair not to, because of the slowness of the process in the courts, it would be wrong to penalize Mr. Hill under these regards. So we should pass this. I second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And we will take a look at that again as we move forward. Okay, we can. I didn't realize we needed to with the amendment. All right. Since we have 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We have more development within the city of Radford. Golden Triangle Development LLC plans to bring 15 single-family patio-style, generally first-floor style homes on a 3.44-acre parcel of property at the intersection of West Main Street and Rock Road. We have 3 things to consider this evening: a subdivision plat, a homeowners association agreement, and development agreement. The development agreement includes the city providing the facilities with the extension of our sanitary sewer, top coat of asphalt on the access road to the development, and acceptance of a 40-foot right-of-way at 24 feet of roadway for development access. Sewer line has already been completed. David, what thoughts do you have on this?
Just a couple of quick things. Very good project, something that's been much needed for our community. Patio homes has been talked about now for almost 2 decades. We're very, very excited about this developer and really looking forward to this project coming on board. The city has been active in helping promote this project and extending our sewer line, the water line as well to promote further, that development as well as further development out on that end of Rock Road. We're narrowing the road right away a little bit. We're still VDOT eligible, so it's not as much roadway, and you can see more houses and green space and that kind of thing by the narrowness of it. But don't have any issues. Melissa has worked with them on the project. If you do agree that adopting this, just adopt it subject to any kind of final city attorney reviews that may be necessary. Melissa, anything you want to add to that as far as the development plat, scheduling, that kind of thing?
We are looking at getting a final as-built of the easement, the sewer easement that was just put in. There was some adjustment made in the field, so John Neal, who was here, if you have any further questions, is going to do some field work next week to ensure that we have the right easement. So I'm going to hold off on you signing that.
Okay.
Pending approval.
John, actually, if you wouldn't mind coming down, I think we may have a few questions regarding the plat. Just two quick things. The development agreement and the homeowners agreement, legal reviewed that, and we're in good shape on both of those, correct?
Final review on it, we don't see any problems with either of those.
Okay. But when we're adopting, we're going to do an additional final review, or we're good on that?
Yeah, just making sure that everything before it's approved, gone through the final hurdle, with y'all's approval, Mike will double check everything.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us a little bit about this development. It looks very interesting. It looks like vehicles will enter from Jeffries Drive, and that's just off of Rock Road. Can you talk a little bit about the development?
Yes, sir. Happy to, and appreciate your all's time this evening, Mayor, members of council. The city staff, I will say first and foremost, the city staff has been tremendous to work with all the way throughout this process. I'm sorry, I'm John Neal, civil engineer for the project. Chris Smith apologizes he could not be here tonight from Golden Triangle. But city staff has been tremendous to work with all the way through the process. Chris has developed several projects in the town of Christiansburg. You may or may not be familiar with Reagan's Point, which is off of exit 118B, just off the interstate in Christiansburg. And then there's also Seneca Springs, which is on Chrisman Mill Road, which goes between Route 11 and Peppers Ferry Road, right by our office, actually. And then also Winsong Heights, which is on Route 11 further into the town. So he's finishing up Reagan's Point right now. They're getting ready to construct the last couple of houses there. That was a 60-home, patio home community. They're getting ready to finish the last couple of houses. He's looking to pull his first building permits here in the next month or so in the city. We do have a small, short cul-de-sac off of Jeffries Drive, planning 15 homes there. Looking forward to getting that project started. And then we have plans to move over to the other side of Jeffries for phase 2, and we're looking at about 25 to 27 homes over there.
What do you think the timeline is for phase 1 and then looking at phase 2?
All I can tell you is what the history has been. We obviously can't completely predict the future, but the 60 homes in Christiansburg for Reagan's Point have completed over about the last 5.5 years. So that was about 12 homes a year. I think this will probably be a little bit slower, but I think he's looking to move relatively quickly.
So over the next 2 to 3 years, more likely than not, most of these might be
I think they
completed.
would all be completed, yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Council members, what questions do you have, Naomi?
I've had the opportunity to go out to the site. I've attended the planning commission meetings. We've been very excited about this project. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. Dr. Harshberger, since you're on the Zoom, I'm going to let you have an opportunity to ask any questions you have.
Oh, okay. You go ahead and I'll think of some.
Okay. Jesse, what do you have?
I was just going to reiterate, when we first were elected, we did the housing study, and the one thing that kept coming up is we did not have patio homes, and that was what was considered an immediate need for our community. So I'm very glad to see that going up. And I guess my question was, with this increased right-of-way, I was just kind of wondering what implications that had, if any.
Say that again.
With the right-of-way.
So typically, it's a larger right-of-way that we, most of our streets have a larger right-of-way. The developer requested a smaller right-of-way and has some precedence with approval from VDOT. So the engineering department, Jay Eanes, reached out to VDOT to determine that, yes, indeed, if they did the smaller right-of-way, that we would be able to turn it back over to the city for us to get our revenue costs from VDOT. So we just need to make sure that it meets the VDOT standards.
Okay.
This is the first one that we've done.
Okay.
So we're kind of putting that language within the, into the development agreement to ensure that we're going to be able to get our funding from VDOT.
And the cul-de-sac is large enough to accommodate
Fire truck?
Yes, sir.
as well.
Yes, sir. So the big concept there is we do have a relatively short cul-de-sac. We're only a couple of 100 feet. And that cul-de-sac will never be extended because over the hill there. And then that, reducing that right-of-way width allows the street pavement width still to VDOT standards to be a little bit narrower. So we bring the houses a little bit closer to the street, gives them actually better backyards. And also just less maintenance overall, less cost from day one, from the capital expenditure of the pavement all the way through to little things of repaving and those types of things in perpetuity in the future.
And this helps the developer be able to put more into the housing, more into the homes.
Yes, sir.
So we're helping out the project along with it. I think it's going to be a great project.
Great.
Great project for our community.
And if I could just add, city staff has done their review of the development, and we're ready to get the approval along with seeing what happens this summer.
Outstanding. Forrest, what questions do you have?
Very exciting. I think these homes will be really useful for the city, and it's always good to hear compliments about our city staff, right, David?
Absolutely. John, so next week you're going to go out and do a little additional work on the site, so there'll be an updated site plan, just a few little tweaks?
Yes, sir. So the city extended the sanitary sewer up to the property, and we had that design plan for that, where the manhole was going to go. And I think they hit a little bit of rock or something, so they may have adjusted slightly. We want to just go out there and we're going to survey locate that to make sure of where it's at so that we can match the easement up with the existing sewer that's now in place.
Fantastic. Dr. Arshberger, did you have anything?
Yes, just one thing you had referenced in there in the agreement there that you would continue to maintain interest in the association's workings even after that's finished, as long as you had land adjacent to it. Are you planning to develop some additional developments beside there? Do you have land there?
So the phase one, which is what we're talking about now, the subdivision that we have is on, if I'm going up Jeffries from Rock, it's on the left-hand side of the road. That is all you see there, and that's all that will be on that side of the road. On the right-hand side of the road is where we would do phase two. So
I see.
the road as it exists that you've seen in the plat, I think, and what you've got is complete.
So do you think we might expect some additional development later?
Yes, sir, absolutely. We are, I'm looking probably to set up a meeting with Melissa in the next couple of weeks for phase two.
Outstanding. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to consider a motion for each one of these things pending final adjustment, pending final improvement. So anything we're doing, it's pending that final adjustment as pursuant to city staff. They'll let us know if there's significant change and go from there. So let's begin with our homeowners association agreement. It's a pretty extensive agreement. I don't feel like I'm an expert enough to be able to say one way or another, but certainly it looks like it's extensive and covers many things. I know we're going to have legal take another look at it, and they've already done one review, correct?
Yes, the main thing with homeowner association is just being sure that agreement for long-term and short-term items between the developer and the homeowners as they're going in, that's their encouragement till you need to buy and the maintenance is going to be done, those kinds of things. Don't see anything significant on that. So
And the road is wide enough all the way through with the cul-de-sac for us to be able to accommodate snow removal, correct? Okay, because I know that's been an issue for us before.
emergency access and snow removal.
Okay, is there a motion that pending final approval from legal that we approve the homeowners association agreement?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Let's take a look at the development agreement. Same thing. This is pretty much a final document. I know we're going to do one final pass with legal.
Just two things, mainly the two things on that for us, three things. The utility extensions that we've done to support the project. Top coat, once the base coat goes in, the developer put that in, and just before the project's finished, we will put the final asphalt coat on it as it's coming over the city, and the narrower right-of-way and travel lane.
All right, that sounds...
We're good with all those.
That sounds good. So we've heard about the development agreement. Do we have a motion to adopt the development agreement?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then finally, the plat, the layout of the property. Council members, you all have a copy of that. I know that's going to be tweaked just a tiny bit as they go back through, but pending the final approval from staff of the plat for the development of the property, do we have a motion to adopt the subdivision plat?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and please give us an update on this as this moves forward. John, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Golden Triangle for their investment in the city. These are, as Jesse said, much needed and something that we've been working to try to bring about for the last 3 years, plus a whole lot longer than that as council has desired that. All right, let's move on. We've got some appropriation ordinances we need to consider. Appropriation Ordinance 1749.33, it's $607,392, the COPS Hiring Program Grant. And Chief, I'll ask if you'll come down front to help explain a little bit about this, and then certainly you can answer any questions that we might have.
I'm going to have Sergeant Height come too. She's my backup on this.
Well, and you all do so much together with community policing, so it's appropriate. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor and members of council, you guys may remember a few months ago we brought the community survey results to you, and at that time we were, kind of forward-thinking and looking at how we could address some of those needs identified in that community survey. And I will say that not only this grant, but some other grants you're going to see. I mean, we have been looking for every pot of money that we can find, and Sergeant Height did an excellent job in finding this federal grant that's going to give us 3 additional officers and help us to meet those needs that were identified in the community survey, and help us to form a community engagement unit. We're doing a lot, but Sergeant Height is a one-person show in the community engagement realm, so you can only imagine being able to multiply that by 3 additional officers, what we're going to be able to accomplish, and the things that we're going to be able to do here in the city. So.
Sergeant Height, anything you want to add about the program? It's a wonderful program. This will fund the officers for 3 years, correct?
That's correct.
And our hope is to begin the hiring process here in the next 60, 90 days. What's the thought?
Well, that's going to be dependent upon, a lot of different things. Right now, we're, everybody, not just the Radford City Police Department, but we're kind of experiencing a shortage of applicants and folks wanting to come out and do police work. So as soon as we can find good people to fill the spots, we're going to fill them. But the hope is, we've missed the academy this time. We have 2 folks in the academy. The next academy starts in June. So the hope is to possibly get some folks, unless we get a certified person, to get some folks in the June Academy.
When does the clock start ticking on this? So is it from the time we begin the hiring process and maybe identify someone? Is it from the time they graduate from the academy? When would this start for the officer, the 36 months?
So my understanding, and Sergeant Height, please chime in if I got this wrong, we started this grant October 2021. Essentially, the COPS grant gives us a year of recruitment period to be able to bring those folks on staff, and then it picks up that 36 months in October of 2022.
Outstanding.
And then the last year is designed as kind of a retention year, I guess to give the locality time to kind of reevaluate the end of the grant approaching and things of that nature.
Outstanding. Council members, what questions do you all have?
Chief, something that you just said maybe, I think I know this, but I want to confirm. You said that we're capturing people before they go into the academy. So they can apply for these positions even before they've been through the academy and then go through the academy specifically for us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're constantly looking for both certified police officers and uncertified. The only thing with uncertified is we have to kind of wait for that next academy to
Right.
pop up. They host 2 a year.
And how long is the academy process?
22 weeks.
Yeah, 22 weeks.
Okay.
And then you have a field training period that is after that. So
Of course.
it takes a while for them to get certified and then put them through proper training. So that takes another officer focus on that, that new officer to train them.
Right.
So we have a couple recruitment things going on now that we've been putting out just to try to get people to our community and see some of the new things that we have going on. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that we'll get some applicants that will be facilities.
Yeah, thank you.
Jesse, you have any questions? Forrest, do you have anything?
No.
Dr. Harshberger, do you have anything?
I just want to say that this is, to me, one of the most important pieces of legislation we can have as far as our police are concerned, because this leads to the issue of trust. And we've been in a climate, not in this city, but around us, where trust is so questioned at times. We have already made such strides through the leadership of Chief Dodson in the police, community-oriented policing. And this will just really go so far to make that even more effective. And we need to congratulate him on this. This is an important piece of funding, and I think it's going to pay dividends far beyond anything that we invest in it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to commend you all for going out and finding this grant. You know, one of the things we've stressed is community policing as being a hallmark of what we're doing, and I think this will provide you, Sergeant Height, with additional support to make that happen. I'm excited to see what you do with it, and we'll go from there. Council members, do we have a motion to adopt appropriation ordinance 1749.33 in the amount of $607,392, and that is with a local match, that includes the local match of $232,392. So $607,392 all total. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second to dispense with the second reading of appropriation ordinance 1749.33. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we have another wonderful grant. This is a $23,000 grant from the Department of Criminal Justice Services to provide support for officer wellness. So, Chief, what can you tell us about this? We're going to be getting some pumped up officers, right?
Yeah, so, as Dr. Harshberger mentioned, over the last couple, 18 months, 12 months or so, it's been pretty tough, pretty tough environment for law enforcement, and not only, the mental health of our law enforcement officers, but physical health. And one of the things that we're trying to do is really beef up our efforts for our employees. We put a lot of money in maintenance of equipment, we put a lot of money in, maintenance of different things we have in the city, but we want to make sure that at the police department we're doing that for our employees. And one way is physical wellness, along with that mental wellness. So we were able to get a grant through DCJS for wellness equipment. There's about $30,000. We have wellness equipment there now, but there's some aging things, treadmills and things breaking down. So this is going to allow us to really beef up our physical wellness room that we have. Also, there's some monies in this grant for LawFit instructors. So those folks are certified to do fitness and do LawFit testing for our new hires. One of the policies that we put in place here soon that we're getting ready to enact is we're going to have a wellness day annually for our employees. to promote wellness and teamwork. And what we're hoping is to have a law fit instructor per shift so that they can
That's great.
coordinate that wellness effort to help keep our officers physically fit and mentally fit.
Outstanding, outstanding. Do we have a motion to adopt appropriation ordinance 1749.34 in the amount of $30,900 with $7,725 of that coming from the existing police budget?
So moved?
We have a
So
motion.
moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved?
We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading of appropriation ordinance 1749.34. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And our next one, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. We've got $24,988 for camera equipment for our in-car video systems for 4 vehicles. $18,741 of that is coming from the Department of Criminal Justice Services, $62,47 from the police budget. Chief, you have anything else you want to add to that?
So basically, what this is going to be used for are our body cameras. You've heard me talk about a watch guard system. It's high definition, it's really high-speed body camera system. Probably about 40% of our vehicle fleet is WatchGuard. The advantage to that is that when an officer cuts on their vehicle camera, it syncs up with their body camera and vice versa. When they hit the body camera, the vehicle camera comes on. So we're really capturing a lot of different perspectives. The other percentage of our vehicle cameras is an old digital alley system. So really what we're trying to do, these things are expensive. Slowly and with grant money and different things, we're trying to get that vehicle camera fleet up to the latest and greatest technology. So these 4 cameras will help to do that. We have 2 vehicles that we recently acquired, and they're just waiting to go to the upfitter. Seems that everybody's a little bit delayed in that right now, so 2 of these cameras will go in those new vehicles that we have.
Outstanding, and thank you once again for going out and finding additional funding to help make that possible.
If I could just ask one
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
So how many do we have to go before all of them have that program? Or those cameras?
If I had to guess, this is a Captain Caldwell question, but I'm going to guess that we probably need about 10 more.
Okay, so really
About 10.
chipping away. Okay, great.
Yep.
All right, do we have a motion to adopt appropriation ordinance 1749.35 in the amount of $24,988?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Having heard, any opposed? Having heard 4 affirmative votes, we can dispense with a second reading if so desired. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved?
We have
So
a
moved.
motion, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to dispense with a second reading of AO 1749.35. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
David, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, just a couple things. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Looking forward to 2022. I was hoping we were going to be past COVID. We're going to start out the new year dealing with that for a little while longer, so we'll get there hopefully. Everybody keep positive attitudes and keep working towards healthy. We'll go from there. Just a couple of things. University Drive Bridge. Contractor is going to be mobilizing at the end of the month. Fairfield Eccles got everything worked out on that. The bridge will not be closed at any point in time. Construction will start late in the month, weather permitting, and run till about early to mid-fall with 3 distinctive sections of project, one being sidewalks, decking, and then the joints. So those joints will go away and the bridge will have a nice smooth surface, and then the approaches is one of the last things on that project. And then the university, of course, is our partner, and they're doing some amenities to improve the fencing and the look of the bridge and kind of some denotation for Ragged versus, since that's the approach to the Edmond Center. Tyler Avenue is going to be closed, the southbound side, for just a few days while the hotel project is hooked up to the sanitary sewer down there. Rerouting the traffic was put in place today, so that project hopefully looks like weather's going to be good for a few days, should move pretty quickly and be done by early next week. One of the things I'm excited about is, despite COVID in the past 2.5 years and how challenging everything has been, the last 6 to 8 months we've had really very positive economic development news. We'll be doing some releases on those in the coming days, but we approached $40 million in building permits in 2021. A number of new developments that have been in the commercial revitalization, remodeling, a number of investments that we've done with our COVID power grant monies that have been provided in a couple of phases there, as well as the new one we're doing regionally. So a lot of active things to help our businesses out. We're getting ready to kick off the East Main Street improvements, which will be a big plus down in the East Main Street area, in the downtown area. It'll include lighting, sidewalk improvements, crosswalk improvements, landscaping, outdoor areas, just very good traffic calming. A lot of things to get folks back walking and biking and visiting our downtown area, and then the tie-ins that makes to all the rest of the development areas that we've done. Leaf collection is resumed again this week. We should be done hopefully in 2 weeks. We've gotten behind with weather and short staff and things like that. So if anybody has any questions, call Public Works. We'll continue to take bag leaves even after the time period is up, but the crews will be going around and raking gutters and getting the streets looking good after they've gotten all the residential picked up. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Dr. Harshberger, since you're remote, I'm going to start with you. Do you have anything for us this evening? Dr. Harshberger, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yes, I just am going to have to cancel a luncheon tomorrow.
I was just thinking that.
We'll get back together on that. I don't think you want to have lunch with me tomorrow with me having, I just don't think that's, yeah.
Well, thank you for being considerate.
All right.
Anything else?
Well, yeah, a few things. Meeting, we'll start up again with the Joint Commission. I'm meeting Friday with my co-chairman there, so we'll be working on that. I'm in the loop with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're moving on that. And I'll be getting back involved with the Fairview District Home. So just to bring you up to date, I'll keep you informed on how things go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi, what do you have?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, as I was reading about the wellness program from the police department, it made me wonder about any wellness programs that we do for other city employees. So David, do we have any kinds of wellness programs that we currently implement? And I'm specifically curious, thinking about any employees who do not live within the city and their access to the rec. Do we provide any forms of incentives or abilities for them to get to the rec?
We do. They have access to the recreation center. We do promote a number of internal things. Dawn sends out a good number of things that are available through our employee benefit program, whether it's mental health, physical health, also any other kinds of things. If you have financial needs, things like that. When we talk about the health, we're talking about the overall picture of the health of our folks. Also, I wanted to mention, I don't think I had mentioned to you all before, but we had talked to Ashley a good bit. We had her come in. She had 2 meetings in this room that were very effective. One, we brought any employees that had questions in. She did a group presentation, which was wonderful, about the coronavirus, the different variants, and then also a lot about the infections, how it affects people, and then the different kinds of vaccinations to help people feel more at ease. And then even stayed and had private questions afterwards. We had so much interest that we ended up doing our own clinic in here as well, vaccination clinic, and we're hoping to do another one of those maybe in early February as we try to seek out more interest in things. So yes, we do have a very active and aggressive employee wellness program and encourage that. We have over the years, Jenny's been involved with different groups. We got away from that during COVID, but it's something we want to bring back, and that's where we do. Some of you have been on council will recall, Dave especially, I think as soon as we during the employee picnic, we did giveaways like kayak or Wii type motion type things. So we try to do those in our programs as well. And then also any kind of health related things, New Year and food and eating properly and things like that.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. It does. I'm very happy to hear that. Chief, you said it best when you said, we need to invest in our people as much as we invest in our infrastructure. So I'm thrilled to hear that. Thank you very much. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was that following our conversation at our last meeting regarding some of the issues that are going to be coming up on in the state and our legislative agenda, I did have some conversations with VML. And the first thing that they wanted to emphasize is that these issues that we discussed are across the state. We're not alone. These are things that every single municipality is dealing with. Every single person is, they're all thinking it, and we're all in the same boat dealing with these issues together. So first of all, regarding the question of mental health and our law enforcement, that is one area where, again, it's such an enormous problem. It's hard to identify a specific one thing that's going to fix and that we should stand for. But she did tell me that there have been several measures that have been suggested throughout various legislative agenda pieces, and they're going to keep us informed about anything that comes up in terms of specific bills that they are supportive of. She did tell me, as I asked, what can we as a jurisdiction do to really highlight that this is affecting us and to make sure that that our state legislators know that we need help. And she said that the number one thing that we can do right now is continue to gather data and talk to our legislators and make sure that they know how these issues are affecting us on, right here in Radford. Chief has been kind enough to continue working with me and discussing with me some of these issues, letting me know when things are coming up. So I'm going to continue, and I'm sorry, I'm going to keep asking you for more information and more data, but I'm going to continue collecting that, and they are going to be in touch with us as more, as the bills that are prepared come out and come to light. So we will learn more about those. The other issue that we spoke most about last week was the question of blight. And this, again, was something across the state that people are dealing with. I did not know this, apparently, that there has been a housing study that has been commissioned on a state level that has not been released yet. And so really the question and discussion of how to address blights within communities from a state legislative perspective, those conversations have really been put on hold until the results of this housing study come out, and it is supposed to make recommendations for us. So that's where things stand right now. We're doing a lot of waiting to find out as people become, it becomes more clear what specific solutions there are going to be to potentially support. So I will keep you all posted as we learn more information as the session advances this year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse, what do you have?
Really, I just have a reflection on this evening. We see that our police department, they're being very aggressive with grants, and I would encourage all of our departments to follow suit because with our current demographics, we do have some challenges, but one of the benefits is it does make us really ripe for grants. So just to kind of encourage all the other departments to be seeking that avenue. And the other thing is I'd like to encourage this council is to continue to support the officers with getting the cameras within the cars. And I see this as very symbiotic. One, we've been talking about transparency, and I think that it helps our citizens feel at peace that there's a check and balance. The other side of that is it also protects our officers. So that they also, understand that they have that protection. So I'm glad to see that we're moving forward with that, and as a council, whatever we can do to move that forward. I find that to be a non-negotiable in this day and age. I think it's important for our citizens and our officers. So.
All right. Thank you. Forrest, what do you have?
Well, it struck me, David, as you were speaking there just a few minutes ago about a new year, and we still have this COVID pandemic hanging over our heads, and its ever-evolving forms, as we spoke of earlier. But I just thought it fitting, as you mentioned, that to just take another moment to commend city staff for the excellent and the hard work that everyone has done to ensure that our city continues running smoothly and safely in the the craziest and most evolving of times. So I know you, David, Jenny, Chief, Melissa, you've all been at the front lines of a lot of these battles. So definitely appreciate all the hard work that you've done, but please extend our gratitude again to the rest of city staff for the work that everybody's doing.
I will do. Thank you.
And you took the words right out of my mouth. I think that's an important piece. You know, we have been able to maintain city services without any major breaks. There are some localities that have not been so fortunate for a variety of reasons. The battle is not over, though, and we do thank all those who have been on the front lines fighting this battle, trying to work on it. A couple of takeaways from tonight. About 45 days in other countries to the peak of the Omicron variant and whatever's left over of Delta. Right now, we're about 20 days into that. So we've probably got another 20 to 25 days, maybe a month of that. I will just say, please, please, please be cautious. It's a little better to be overcautious rather than a little lax right now. I know we're all sick of the masks. I'm so tired of having to wear a mask, but that is a good tool. It is helpful. For all of our businesses, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to reach out to Ashley, to be following best practices, because having to shut down for 5, 10, 15 days, especially as we're starting to ramp back up into this 2022 new year, can be really challenging. And we can potentially avoid some of that. So yes, I want to commend the city definitely, and David, some of the things you pointed out where we've been proactive to use the BCT, where we brought in the vaccine clinics, where we've helped answer questions as much as possible. If anybody is concerned that they don't have information, reach out to Ashley. She is a paid employee that all of us in the Regional Commission have pooled money to service the communities, and that includes the city of Radford. So please feel free to utilize her services. Also reach out to any member of council. If you have concerns, if you have questions, we will do our best to help get you answers on this. This is an important time, and unfortunately, while we've seen a surge of several hundred cases in just 1 week, which is far beyond what we've seen before, it's probably going to be the lowest point over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be great if next week it just all goes away and we're all done. I would ask people to think about that. Please consider to wear your masks as much as possible and socially distance. I know we're all tired of it, but we just want to keep people as healthy as possible and keep things together as much as we can.
Can I reiterate? I had my vaccination and booster, and it is no joke. You guys can hear I'm still struggling in regards to my breathing and my chest capacity. So I just want to say, please, if you have not gotten vaccinated, please consider doing so, because I'm fairly certain the way it impacted me, I would have been one of those statistics in the hospital. So please, please, please keep yourself safe and in the very least get vaccinated.
Well, you bring up a very good point. We have a very special member of our community who recently had a non-COVID situation, but was impacted very strongly. He's doing much better, but because of COVID in all of the area hospitals, it did delay some of the potential care that might have expedited some of the process. Hospitals are very full right now, and I think we all want to be careful, because the worst possible scenario is that we continue to see a rise in cases, that people are hospitalized, we don't have beds available, we don't have services available. We're not there yet, but we need to be careful so that we don't get there. And vaccination is one good way to help that. 2 quick things.
I think, if I may, I just think I'm a testimony to the fact I am asymptomatic at this point, but I would not be if I hadn't been really fully vaccinated.
Absolutely.
May I just say one other thing? We passed this on the cameras in the cars. When we first did that a number of years ago, we had a presentation at City Council, and we were presented with a complaint from a citizen, well-written and damning of our police department. And then they brought out the video from that engagement. The entire complaint was fabricated. Very well done, but total fabrication. We had the evidence there from the camera. So that's so important. Our police deserve that, a fair shake.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely. Two quick things. Dr. Harshberger, I heard you say you'll be meeting with Joint Commission. I hope one of the major components can be the neighborhood project. And once you and Dr. Trageser have an opportunity to talk, I'd like to come speak with you all about that. And Melissa, if you're able to help us some with our intersection of Rock Road and Wadsworth Street with that neighborhood project, getting those things rolling. Unfortunately, we can't get together as much as we want to. Some of these things may have to be virtual, but the idea is going to be that we can identify challenges, we can celebrate history and special things about the neighborhoods in our community, and also begin to make plans. So we are in budget season right now. Next week, or 2 weeks from now, we're going to have a fairly extensive kickoff to what we're doing and talk about that. But this is how we can establish some additional priorities. We have priorities that all of council shares, but to look at concerns that maybe we're unaware of. I think that's going to be very helpful. Martin Luther King Day is on Monday, January the 17th. Please consider that a day to provide service. The university and many of the folks who work and are participants there will be providing service around the community. If you can't do service on that actual day, please consider making donations or contributing other things to your favorite service outlets or charities. One thing that has been brought up multiple times, I think it's a great idea and I wanted to mention it here, is support of our animal shelter, because the 17th also would have been Betty White's 100th birthday, and everybody loved Betty White. She was such an advocate for animals. And one of the things that's been proposed is that folks make contributions and participate with the Radford Animal Shelter to support the work of Adele and her team and all that they do. I think that's a great idea. So please reach out and help consider that. If there are other things, whether it happens to be a charity you support, a church, an organization, please consider that. That's coming up on Monday with Martin Luther King Day. And the last thing I'll say before we wrap this portion of the meeting up, David alluded to some things that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks and months. Thank you to all of our city staff. Thank you to our council. Thank you to our citizens for helping to make Radford a place where people have wanted to invest, for helping to make Radford a place where people want to settle and spend their time and live. That's been one of the goals that we have had, to try to help restore some of the things we've looked for in this community, to build up and to move forward. It's really exciting to see some of these things coming to fruition, especially considering all that we've been through. We've still got some challenging days ahead, but altogether, I think it shows that we can do this and we can make this happen. And that's all I have for now. We do need to go into closed session. Vice Mayor Huntington, if you will take us into closed session, please.
I will make a motion to convene a closed meeting for the purpose of discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and evaluation of performance or of departments under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, and for consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically to discuss collective bargaining requests and legal requirements.
So we have a motion to move into closed session for the reasons stated. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please respond by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, with that, we will close this portion of the meeting and we will return after our closed session.